Seiya drops a tactical nuke right in the middle of homeroom. His childhood friend Su thinks his ears must be broken. Seiya keeps a straight face. He wants to confess to Asahina. So realizes this is going to be a massive headache. He has to clarify. The Asahina? The one way out of his league? He hits Seiya with the silent stare of judgment. Then he roasts him. You're boring, lazy, and you don't even know what love is. Seiya admits he is clueless, so Su asks for the motive. Why her? Here's the twist. Seiya just wants access to her legendary homemade lunch. Sao's brain completely short-circuits. Seiya's logic is simple. Girlfriends feed you. Strangers don't. So tries to process this absolute nonsense. To Seiya, she isn't a romantic partner. She is a walking grocery store. He decides that is enough planning and tries to bail. He makes a break for it, but So snipes him with the grab. He forces the idiot back into his seat before he ruins his life. He demands to know the actual battle strategy. Seiya realizes he has absolutely zero game plan. He says he will just find her and wing it. So sighs, preparing for the inevitable crash and burn. Asahina is the Iron Lady. She rejects every confession she gets. But since Seiya is deaf to logic, Su decides to let him learn the hard way. He gives the green light. Time to face reality. Su told him to play it smart, leave a note, and get to his shift. Fast forward to the AV room the next day, and the interrogation began. Seiya confirmed the eagle had landed in her shoe locker, totally blindsiding Yui. She prayed he used cute stationery to set the romantic vibe, but when he admitted he used a brown utility envelope, So absolutely lost his mind. Seiya genuinely didn't see the problem with treating a confession like a tax return. Yui tried to call it sincere, but So needed the receipts. He literally summoned her to the rooftop at 5:15 sharp, like it was a mandatory staff meeting. The deadline hit. Seiya announced he was dipping, while Su promised to laugh at his funeral if he got shot down. Zero hesitation, he slid the door open and marched straight into the fire. So didn't stop him. He just stared at his screen, letting the silence rot. Yui decided to twist the knife. She asked if he was really okay watching Seiya steal the senpai he claims to love. Then she hit him with some 4D chess logic. She claimed she wasn't worried because her bond with the senior was invincible. Sao's brain short-circuited. He realized he officially understands absolutely nothing about how these weirdos think. Arisa was chilling on the roof, minding her own business. Seiya showed up 10 minutes early, trying to look legit. She roasted him for handing out those shady brown envelopes. They spent way too long debating the definition of being weird. Arisa got impatient and told him to cut to the chase. Seiya dropped the bomb and asked her to go out with him. She stared at him, letting the awkwardness marinate. She hit him with the polite but absolute rejection. Seiya noted she sounded like a scripted NPC. She admitted she rejects guys on a daily basis. He took the L without even blinking, which freaked her out more than the actual confession. He demanded a post-game analysis of his failure. She cited his zero-confidence voice, and she is too busy grinding to worry about romance. Plus, she knows absolutely nothing about him. Seiya nodded like he was taking lecture notes. He tried to hustle a date based on pure logic. Arisa's brain short-circuited at the audacity. She checked for a headache before shutting him down. Then she asked if they had ever actually spoken. She accused him of faking the confession. She demanded to know one quality he actually liked. Arisa leaned in, expecting a compliment about her soul. Seiya locked in to deliver the cold, hard truth. He looked her in the eye and said, "Your lunch." He didn't stutter. He just likes the food. He wants a relationship with her cooking. Arisa realized she was being courted for a bento. Check the bento that started this mess. So mocked her for the extra effort. He stared her down until it got awkward, leaving Arisa groaning in embarrassment. The negotiation ended with high-velocity violence. The bystanders froze, afraid to breathe. Seiya stood there with a swollen cheek. Honesty hurts. The squad hits the cafeteria to assess the damage. Su points out that getting slapped is usually a sign to quit, but Seiya slams the table. He refuses to stay down. He drops a weird confession. He wants to eat Asahina's lunch. Yui asks if it looked tasty and he looks her dead in the eye. No, it looked like garbage. Su questions his sanity, but Seiya is committed to the food poisoning. Yui loves the chaos. She claps her hands, deciding they are going to harass the girl until she submits. So begs them to stop, but Seiya hits him with a hard no. Yui declares it is strategy time while So sighs his soul out. He realizes he is surrounded by idiots. Sue finally asks why he got slapped in the first place. Seiya explains. She asked, "What do you like about me?" And he answered, "Asahina's lunch." The team realizes he has negative social skills. Sue calls it a massive social landmine. Yui argues that Asahina is too nice to hold a grudge. They clench their fists, deciding to double down on the awkwardness. Yui strikes a pose, declaring herself the master of love. Sue reminds her the target is a girl, but she ignores him. She sizes up the victim, already obsessing over how pure he is. The war room is open. Yui lays out the strategy, a love letter attack with fancy paper. Seiya takes notes like a good student, while Sue looks at the sky. He knows this is going to fail. Back at headquarters, Mama was crunching the numbers. The roster was full, but the seats were empty. Then a wild customer appeared, looking totally lost. Mama wasn't impressed. She crushed her cigarette, along with his vibe. She hit him with the gatekeeper challenge immediately. He tried to introduce himself, but she shut him down instantly. She demanded a nomination, and the guy started glitching out. Since he had 0 credentials, she told him to go sit in the corner. Just then, the bell rang. The actual talent arrived for their shift. Mama broke the bad news. The place was a ghost town, except for the random internet lurker waiting in the lobby. Yui immediately called her out for bullying the clientele, but Mama just shrugged, totally unbothered. She called the customers trash, while Seiya quietly enabled her nicotine addiction. She stacks the dishes, admitting Seiya is actually a pretty sharp kid. Then she pauses, her gaze softening for a rare moment of gentleness. Yui shows up, smiling like she doesn't have a care in the world. She promises to get ready, but only after helping her senpai with some paperwork. Mama watches silently, since Yui is practically throwing hearts at the guy right in the middle of the office. It would be a beautiful romance scene if they weren't stuck in this depressing dump. Arisa was curled up on the sand, absolutely going through it. Her dad hovered nearby, giving her space but staying within reach. He tried to break the ice, but the guilt instantly choked her up. That voice in her head was loud and clear, "Do not be a burden." Arisa woke up feeling like absolute trash. She tried to stretch out the bad vibes, ripped the curtains open to force herself into the day. She zoned out at her vanity, trying to look human. She ghosted the maid and ignored the fancy breakfast. Silent car ride, staring out the window, until the driver hit the brakes at school. She hit her locker, expecting a boring morning, but someone left a creepy little present inside. She froze. What is up with these jars? Then she saw the note. "We're waiting on the rooftop." Instant chills. She knew exactly who wrote this. It was that guy. She shoved the evidence in her bag before anyone saw. No name, no time. This screamed trap, but someone was already calling her. The next morning, she equips her best fake smile for the NPCs wanting to team up. Internally, she is absolutely losing it. That guy sent another letter. She is sick of these mind games wasting her time. Before she can spiral, a voice snaps her back to reality. Maki spawns in from the shadows with a casual greeting. She glitches out, stammering like she just saw a ghost. Dead silence fills the room. She catches her breath, demanding to know why he is running a stealth build. Later, the gossip squad corners her. They want the tea on Maki since he never talks to anyone but Tezuka. They tease ironclad Asahina about finally unlocking a boyfriend. She shuts down the rumors just as the teacher saves her from the cringe. Alan kills the mood, dragging her to the front to solve a nightmare equation. She crushes it effortlessly. Alan nods, telling the rest of the scrubs to get on her level. But she can't celebrate. Maki is laser focused on her, and her anxiety is hitting critical mass. Then the cliches attack. She drops her eraser, and he snipes it off the floor. He hands it back like it's contraband. She barely manages a thank you. Before she can recover, Alan drops the nuke. Mandatory group work. He didn't ask, he demanded they pair up right then and there. He tossed her a handkerchief to wipe her face before she could even argue. Then he started spamming her name like a glitchy NPC until she finally responded. He even dragged her to the vending machine to buy her a water. Arisa started sweating bullets. She had to wonder, is this really how a guy acts after getting dumped? Arisa face planted on her desk, trying to figure out his glitchy behavior. The background extras started yapping about the lunch drama. Her ear twitched. She definitely heard that. She slammed the desk, totally fed up with the noise. She initiated a tactical retreat to the cafeteria. The stairwell had straight-up horror movie vibes. She took one cautious step and realized she was being hunted. The footsteps got louder. She froze. Sweat poured down her face. A chill wrecked her entire nervous system. There he was, staring her down from above. He charged like a wild animal. Arisa panicked and screamed at him to back off. He explained with a straight face that a love master ordered him to save her. Arisa told them to beat it. Days later in the war room, Sue dropped the intel. The target finally moved. Sue checked on her, but the love master called her misery convenient. Then the door flew open. Arisa marched in looking like a raid boss. She screamed on the roof, then stormed in gasping for air. She told Maki to zip it. She needed to know who was pulling the strings right now. The love master claimed she was helping, but Arisa called it straight up stalking. The locker letters were the last straw. She questioned the title, then dragged So into the roast. She grilled them for helping while Maki claimed he was powerless. The tension peaked until Sue screamed for a timeout. She chugged water to reset the vibe. She apologized for going rage mode. The team tried to defend the stalkers as harmless. Arisa shut that down. Being followed wasn't cute, it was terrifying. So bowed deeply and took the L. Arisa couldn't wrap her head around it. She refused to believe it was flirting and called it a trash-tier prank. Maki tried to stop the train wreck, but So had no brakes. He demanded to eat her lunch. The squad froze. He doubled down on the hunger. Arisa answered with a high-velocity face correction. Asahina headed to her seat, just praying for a quiet morning. But naturally, Maki ruined that plan with a polite greeting. She gave a stiff nod, keeping the vibes absolutely weird. She couldn't even process his new attitude before a friend cut in. The gossip started instantly, accusing Maki of stalking her. The girl grinned, roasting Arisa for screaming in the hallway earlier. Arisa cringed, realizing she had an audience for her breakdown. She spun a cover story claiming he just returned a lost item. The girl twisted the knife, mocking Arisa's ex-boyfriend drama. Arisa went silent. She flashed a fake smile, shutting the girl down cold. Internally, she raged at herself for dragging an innocent guy into her mess. She stomped up the stairs to escape the conversation and shoved the next door open. She hit the fence, letting the wind slap her awake. The open sky looked like a giant exit sign from her problems. Before she could fantasize about flying away, a voice dragged her back to the concrete. Maki. He followed her up just to check on her, instantly making the vibe weird. The silence was loud enough to shatter glass. She side-eyed him, but he just stood there, watching her like a statue. This was painful. Maki finally spoke up, guessing she fled the classroom because the vibe was off. That hit a nerve. She snapped back instantly, asking whose fault he thought that was. He asked if hanging out with a problem child like him was social self-delete. She didn't sugarcoat it. Yeah, it is. He apologized like a kicked puppy. She just stared him down, totally unimpressed. Internally, she raged. That weak, passive attitude was exactly why he was in this mess. She refused to be a sandcastle waiting for the tide. She wanted to be bulletproof, essential. She focused on her one true goal. Her only wish was to grow up into a respectable adult. She swore that getting involved with him was a guaranteed disaster. Several rainy days dragged by until the stress faded into a boring, sleepy haze. Seiya kept his eyes peeled on the classroom drama while Asahina just stared out the window, completely zoning out. The stalking had stopped, so maybe the coast was finally clear. But he still had questions about that lunch. It was super rare to see him simp over a girl like this. Tezuka was too busy daydreaming about romance to focus. The teacher snapped, ordering him to stand up immediately. He got roasted for ignoring the lesson after so many warnings. Tezuka just sighed, taking the L in silence. The lecture followed them to the back room. The boss warned the boys they were skating on thin ice. Maki snatched his bag, making excuses for the slackers. But then, a realization hit him, and he started firing off texts. His gear buzzed with an alert. He checked the chat, asking if the Asahina mission was scrubbed. He tapped the screen. The reply was instant. She was dodging him to avoid his bad rep. The guy texted back so fast it felt like talking to a bot. Then came the real question. How much power can you actually use? Back in class, Sue was busy destroying his street cred. He sat there eating a perfectly balanced bento like a total health freak. Then the senpai rolled up and the squad demanded a lunch reveal. He reached in and pulled out the saddest meal in existence, 2 lonely, plastic-wrapped bread rolls. His friends immediately flamed him for the lack of nutrition. Asahina couldn't watch this tragedy, so she offered up her own sandwich. Naturally, he tried to barter with it. So tried to toss him some fried chicken, but the guy got weirdly stubborn about debts. They basically had to force feed him, explaining that So just wanted to flex his cooking. He finally accepted the charity with a polite bow. And while he fought for his life against the massive bun, the conversation turned to his part-time grind. Maki cut the small talk. He had to go visit his mom. His friend got weirdly nervous and invited himself along. Maki just shrugged and accepted the backup. Good thing too, because the weather turned nasty. They trekked through the storm until the hospital finally came into view. Standing in the cold, Maki realized he couldn't even remember what his mom's cooking tasted like. Back in the day, Sue was basically part of Seiya's furniture. He ate their snacks and scrubbed their dishes like he paid rent. Standing outside apartment 805, that confidence is gone. He freezes at the door, terrified of the boss battle waiting inside. They find Maki in the hospital. She immediately kills the vibe, saying she should have been deleted already. Seiya tries to play nice and tells her she looks healthy. Big mistake. A massive impact jolts the room, cutting his pep talk short. Maki snaps. She thinks looking good is code for you are lazy. Sue loses it. He starts yelling at the patient while checking if Seiya has brain damage. She yeets a notebook at their heads, screaming that they are looking down on her. Seiya takes the abuse and apologizes. Maki is not done. She turns her laser sights on So next. She demands to know why this random NPC is tagging along. Sue admits they are not related. Maki dismisses him as total trash. She shifts gears instantly. She asks Seiya the only question she actually cares about. Is he making bank? Her hand clutches the sheets, desperate for the answer. Seiya confirms the pay is solid. Maki's mood flips. Since the cash is safe, she has no use for them anymore. She orders them to get lost. Seiya clenches his fist, swallows his pride, and agrees to leave. He offers one last kind word. She screams at him to shut up and vanish. The door slides shut on that nightmare. Uoo calls his name, but Seiya is totally checked out. He grips his strap like a lifeline, shaking with rage. Sue sees the panic and gently guides him toward the exit. Walking down the hall, Seiya mutters an apology for the drama. Sue tells him to chill out, but at the entrance, So pulls a fade. He claims he has to stop somewhere else first. He tells Seiya to head home alone, then walks off, leaving his bro in the dust. Seiya ends up rotting on a park bench, letting the darkness sink in. He remembers the old excuse. She used to say they could be real brothers if only they had the cash. She played the loving mother, telling him the door was always open. What a sick joke. Sue wrestled with his conscience for exactly 2 seconds, then remembered he wasn't blood related to those psychos, so he stopped giving a damn. A few weeks later at school, he caught the squad hanging by the AV room and asked if they were actually studying. She panicked. She pretended she didn't speak the language just to dodge the midterm question. Seiya was safe, but she was sinking into a pit of despair. 2 points. She got a grand total of 2 points on the entire exam. So stressed out, but she refused to fold. She screamed that the war wasn't over yet. So sighed. He realized he was trapped and agreed to babysit these idiots. Then, she had a brilliant idea. Recruit Asahina. Sue shut that down instantly. She is a no-go zone. They pointed out that asking for help from someone who literally slapped them might be a bad play. But she argued the semantics. Asahina hates stalkers, not students. They just needed a legit excuse to knock on her door. She shoved Seiya down the hall to test that theory, then slammed the door behind him. With the room clear, she hyped herself up as a tactical genius, until Sue asked if she was really cool with sending her crush away. She started vibrating with anxiety. She claimed she was the perfect wife for allowing him freedom. She yelled that she was fine, absolutely fine, just feeling a little sick to her stomach. She called it an upfront investment for future romance. So looked at her crazy eyes and decided to let her cope in peace. So left the chaos behind, but the drama followed him upstairs. He marched down the hall and shoved the heavy door open. Asahina was waiting by the fence, striking a pose like a dramatic heroine. She thanked him for showing up, but this definitely wasn't a casual hangout.